Hello and welcome back to the what is now the fourth episode of the Bathurst and Elwell Show. I'm Henry Elwell, and of course I'm joined by my co-host.
Lewis Bathurst.
And let's jump into things straight away, shall we? Now, in the football, you've got the Champions League going on, obviously, and the group stage games have been drawn, and it looks tasty. It looks tasty. PSV have Arsenal, just to run things down. PSV have Arsenal, Real Madrid have Atletico Madrid, PSG have Liverpool, and Club Brugge have Aston Villa in the first half of the bracket, which I'll be taking on quickly now, just running through things. I think Arsenal will get the better of PSV through the two legs. Maybe not when PSV are at home, simply because of how good PSV's record is at home. But at the Emirates, I think it'll be a different story. Maybe if Arsenal can bag a few goals, obviously no proper striker, but they tend to do well in without one anyway. So does it matter? Real Madrid have Atletico Madrid, as I've mentioned, which is quite a huge game. Which I think you're a bit stupid if you don't think Real Madrid will not win that. They will win that over the two legs. Obviously, Atletico Madrid did play against Barcelona last night as of recording this, and it was a 4-4 draw, which is kind of mental, with Griezmann and Julian Alvarez scoring for Atletico Madrid within basically a few minutes of the game starting.
But it is important to note that Barcelona didn't play a full strength squad, even though it was the Copa America semi final, which I think is just as nuts as a scoreline to be in the semi final of it. It's not a major tournament for them, but it's a big enough tournament to want to try and win it, and they didn't play a full strength squad.
Yeah, that is a bit silly. Is the Copa del Rey final still the one that's in Saudi,
Uh,
or is that different?
I I'm not sure.
There's one Spanish competition they do in Saudi Arabia for whatever reason, and now in Italy do the same as well. But regardless, moving on, we've got PSG against Liverpool as well. Now I think it'll be an easy ride for Liverpool. However, I could see PSG kind of going through based on bullshit, because that is kind of what they can do, but also at the same time, it is PSG. I mean, beating Brest 8-0 isn't much, or whatever it was, isn't much of an achievement, and there's no real credit to it. If you are PSG, you should be beating Brest 8 or whatever nil it was. So I do see Liverpool picking up the win against against the French side. Aston Villa will then play Club Brugge in two legs, and I think you'd be daft to say that Aston Villa aren't the favourites going into this tie. Club Brugge, obviously they can. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they do at least win maybe the home leg for them, which would be their first game. But overall, I do think Aston Villa will pick up the victory there.
Moving on to the second half of the draw, the other side of the tournament, should I say? So the ones that Henry just run through will not meet any of these until at least the final stage, depending on who gets there. The fixtures are Benfica versus Barcelona, Dortmund versus Lille, Bayern Munich versus Bayer Leverkusen, and Feyenoord versus Inter Milan. I think it's fair to say that this is probably the weaker side of the draw. Um, Purely based on how strong the other side is, but I don't think it'll be any less entertaining. Just take the first game, for example, Benfica versus Barcelona. That's the tie on this side of the draw, and that actually happened in January. When we saw it towards the end of January, I believe it was possibly the best game of all the league phase games in the Champions League, where Benfica were at home and Barcelona managed to get a 5-4 victory, including 3 penalties and a first half hat trick for Pavlidis, who plays for Benfica. So if they can do that in 90 minutes, I'd love to see what they could do in 180 minutes with the two legs they've got this time. Hopefully, serve us up two games like that, and we get an aggregate score of 11-8 or something. Next, Dortmund Lille. I think this is a tricky one to predict. I think usually, if we were basing things off usual seasons, you'd probably have Dortmund winning it. But Dortmund have just not been up to scratch this season. They sit quite far down in the Bundesliga. Um, and Lille, I think Lille are always one of those squads that have the potential of doing something, but never really quite go through with it. So it will be interesting to see who does come out on top of this tie. Although you feel whether it is Dortmund or Lille, they'd struggle to get Barcelona in the next stage. But that's for a different. That's for down the line. Got to focus on this one, and I'd probably just put Lille through purely because of the disappointing season that Dortmund had. But of course, don't get me wrong, Dortmund can switch things in an instant, and they've got the squad to win this game. The next one's another huge game. Bayern Munich versus Bayer Leverkusen, two rivals in the Bundesliga, both towards the top of the Bundesliga. If I'm not mistaken, at time of recording, I think Bayern are first and Leverkusen are second. Although there is an 8 point gap between them. If we cast our mind back to this time last season, it was probably the reverse. Leverkusen were having their absolutely incredible unbeaten season. They're not quite having a season to the same magnitude, but it's not much worse. They are keeping consistency. It would have always been tough to beat the season
Well,
last season.
it can't be any. They are second in the league. That you can't really ask for much more other than winning it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that was a kind of a good blip, but a blip.
Yeah, I mean, even though they've produced something close to last season's record, they're still 8 points behind Bayern, who really turned the taps on this season more than they did last season. And I think Bayern will go through. I don't think it will be smooth sailing by any stretch of the imagination, but I think Bayern will probably just squeeze through, and that puts us on to the last leg on this side of the draw. Feyenoord Inter, a good game. I think naturally on paper you put Inter as the favourites. I think their squad's better than the Feyenoord squad. I think all round they are probably a better football team than Feyenoord, but I think Feyenoord have got a lot of grit and determination, you could probably say, and I could see them scraping out results here against Inter. Although I would probably just side with the team hailing from Italy to go through and play Bayern in the semi-finals.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I wouldn't say Inter Milan are destined to lose against Feyenoord.
No.
But it could happen. I mean, we know what a PSV side's like, and if they're any similar
Yeah,
with the being it Dutch. I mean, I know it's not a
but
football podcast, but
Feyenoord don't quite have the home record that
oh,
PSV
of
do.
course not. No, PSV are blowing teams out of the water basically for years now
They've,
at home. So,
they've not been beaten at home since November 2022, which is just crazy when you think about, okay, the Dutch league's not the most competitive league in the world,
but
but
still, even you would think maybe like a shock result or somewhere. But
12 European games in a row in the Champions League or Europa League, they've won at home. So you can't really knock PSV's home record. Feyenoord don't have that to match. And we stay on the theme of football, but we move away from the Champions League. A big stirring point on social media caused by Jamie Carragher saw a lot of people debating on Twitter and the like about whether AFCON is a major tournament. Just for a bit of context, the conversation came up when talking about Salah's Ballon d'Or chances. Obviously, there's no AFCON tournament this season, but there will be at the beginning of next season. And Jamie Carragher believes that Salah should focus more on Liverpool than the AFCON, because apart from Salah in the Egyptian squad, the squad depth's not brilliant for that squad. But I think the argument that it's not a major tournament is possibly a defunct argument, because it is quite literally the African equivalent of the Euros.
yeah, so it's a massive deal. I don't understand what Carragher said there at all. Maybe it doesn't have the same eyes over here than we do with the Euros, but that's only natural. But also Also, I'd argue that people do watch it anyway.
Yeah,
It's not something that you kind of like go, oh no, I'm not going to watch that.
uh,
It,
it, it
it is known.
it doesn't have the viewership of the Euros, of
No,
course
of
not,
course not.
because we're
We're not in Africa.
no, we're in Europe. But
Yeah,
I would argue it probably doesn't have much less viewers than the Copa America, you could say,
yeah,
which
of
is the
course. Yeah, of course.
South American equivalent, sorry, of the Euros. So I think to say it's a major tournament, it's not a major tournament. It's false from Jamie Carragher. And when Rio Ferdinand called him out about it, Jamie Carragher didn't like it and called Rio Ferdinand a clown, which it just shows you the immaturity, really, Jamie Carragher. I don't despise him as a pundit. He's not my favourite pundit by any stretch of the imagination, but when you go back to him spitting on the child and now all this, he's very immature in his later life.
Yeah, he doesn't help himself a lot of the time. I mean, you see him on the American broadcast over on, is it CBS?
Yeah,
When he brings up random. I mean, I get that that's the whole point
yeah,
over in America there, but sometimes you like with the whole Malik Scott
yeah,
situation and everything, like he created that out
yeah.
of no like he's a bit of a weird pundit to have. I think he works well with Neville. I don't think he works well when he's not with Neville. And
Uh,
even then,
yeah.
sometimes he comes out with hooners. So, you know. And who's backed him up on Twitter? Or X?
Joey Barton,
Joey Barton, everyone's favourite footballer.
very, very controversial footballer, manager,
If you
person.
could call him a manager, yeah, I guess.
Um, yeah, when you got your only person backing you up as Joey Barton, you
You've
probably
probably said something wrong.
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not going to repeat the words that Joey Barton used
yeah,
in his tweet, but I'm sure it'll be out there somewhere. And if you want to have a look what he said, you can have a look what he said. It wasn't very pleasant, and it was very Joey Barton style. Another possibly big talking point in football this week, the lower leagues of football, was Monday night. We saw first against second in the Championship, Sheffield United against Leeds at Bramall Lane. It was a big game. As a Wednesday, I could say I hate both teams, and if both could lose, that would have been an ideal result. But if you wanted anyone to win, personally for me, it would have been Leeds, just because they are so evidently the better team. And I think it's clear for many people to see that Sheffield United have got lucky with results this season. Um, and I think when they went 1-0 up, they definitely deserved it. Leeds weren't great in the first half, and Meslier is possibly the worst goalkeeper in the Championship. Uh, Considering he played for the best team in the Championship, it's not a great mix. He's very,
yeah.
very, very much a liability for Leeds.
From what I've seen, I don't watch a lot of Championship football. As a Lincoln fan, I kind of just stick to League One, Premier League, and other major leagues, but kind of, for whatever reason, just never really got on with the Championship. Meslier is woeful.
Yeah, he really is.
Like as a guy who's been a goalkeeper for Leeds for a long time now,
Yeah.
and they're number one quite a long time. It's weird how bad he is at goalkeeping.
Yeah, I mean, they've not really been given much option when they've got Carl Darlow on the bench. You can't argue he's much better, but when you had the chance to sign Alex Palmer in January, it just had to be done.
Newcastle's finest.
Uh, uh, but yeah, Leeds came back in the second half, sloppy defending from Sheffield United, but we've seen it many times this season with Sheffield United. They've only got the squad depth now with injuries to go probably 65, 70 minutes. And after that, they capitulate, and we saw that again on Monday evening. It now puts Leeds 5 points clear at the top of the table. Um, Burnley are 2 points behind Sheffield United for the automatic positions, and I think that's the interesting thing in the Championship. I think Sunderland are out of the automatic promotion race now. Enzo Lefebvre and Dan Ballard are both out for a significant period of time. Two key players for Sunderland, especially Enzo Lefebvre since he's coming from January. He's just been electric, and to see he's got a hamstring issue, it's not ideal. But I think Burnley are very, very much in the hunt for the automatic player position, because with 2 points behind Sheffield United, um, they they're all only the only thing they have to do is match Sheffield United results for the rest of the season, and then they play them at Turf Moor, in which Burnley are undefeated at Turf Moor, And so if Burnley get a victory against Sheffield United at Turf Moor and match the results for the rest of the season, that sends Burnley up automatically and leaves Sheffield United once again in the playoffs, which as a Wednesday fan would be ideal scenario, especially now I think our playoff hopes are very much gone as we sit down in 13th, I think it is now, and look ahead to Norwich, Sunderland and Sheffield United in 3 of our next 4 games.
In boxing now, obviously Parker was meant to fight Dubois on the Beterbiev and Bivol card, which saw Bivol win against Beterbiev within 12 rounds. Now that's a great fight there between the two fighters. But moving on to the Parker situation and Dubois, because that's more kind of British based. Dubois pulled out a few days, I think 2 days before, maybe 3 days, before his scheduled fight against Joseph Parker, where Bakole had to come in and change, where Bakole made his way in instead of Dubois. Now Dubois has not said anything. It's really weird. He's not come out with a statement. He's not even tweeted. He's not put an Instagram story out. He said absolutely zilch on the situation. I'm not entirely sure whether that's. I don't know. I don't even know what the injury is for Dubois. So we're gonna have to hope that it's nothing serious and it is a legitimate injury at the same time, because you don't want a fighter faking an injury just to not fight Parker, which seems silly. But Parker's a very very good fighter, veteran fighter, you could argue. And Bakole did put up a good fight, but lost in the second round. Sticking to combat sports, Dan Hooker has dropped out from UFC 313, which is set to take place not this weekend, but the weekend after. Now this leaves Justin Gaethje technically without a fight. Obviously, Dana White will sort that out. Probably it will be Moicano. If not Moicano, probably Fiziev or Gamrot. Now, in my opinion, Gamrot over Fiziev or Moicano. But I wouldn't mind a Moicano fight, but hopefully Gamrot, someone that can actually bring a fight to Justin Gaethje. It's a shame that Dan Hooker's dropped out from the card. He dropped out with a hand injury. He's shown it on Sky Sports New Zealand. And his hand just looked a bit puffy. So whether that's a dislocation, I'm not entirely too certain. I don't think he said much on it either, so that doesn't help. But we've been robbed of an excellent fight there. Dan Hooker and Justin Gaethje, two bad men that don't give a toss, and within the cage at least. And what a fight we could have been promised. I mean, Dan Hooker a few weeks ago said that he was prepared to. He knew he was going to fight and going to end up in the ambulance after. These are two men that don't care for their own health, which isn't the best thing in the world. But in the octagon, yeah, that is brilliant, and we've been robbed of that for sure. I think, like I said, he'll probably fight Gamrot on 2 weeks' notice, which is still a very good fight for Gaethje. But such a shame that it can't be Dan Hooker.
So from two combat sports, hands-on combat sports, you got another touch sport, you could say.
Very touchy.
In the rugby, we've seen the return of Six Nations this weekend. The results were Ireland beat Wales, not as convincingly as many people would have imagined. England beat Scotland, again, just from misconversion kick from Finn Russell. And France absolutely decimated Italy, as everybody expected. Their score was in the 70s, and I believe Italy's score was in the low 20s, mid-20s. It was a 50-point absolutely rout.
France went to town with Italy.
Yeah, really did. I mean, that was expected.
Yeah. And obviously Wales almost took it to Ireland, to be fair to them. But obviously didn't go the way of the Welsh.
England fans it was an awful first half from England. We picked ourselves back up again in the second half, got it to 16-10, I believe it was, to England, and then Scotland scored a last minute try, but Finn Russell missed a conversion kick for the 2 points, and England won 16-15.
Yes.
England's remaining schedule is very favourable. We play Italy, followed by Wales. We've already played Ireland and France, the big two, and now we've played Scotland. So we've got the two, you could say, easier teams, especially Italy and Wales as well. Um, and France and Ireland have got to play each other. And now England are 4 points behind Ireland and 1 point behind France. I think the Ireland France game next Saturday, I believe it is, or a week on Saturday, sorry. It's just absolutely huge for the dynamics of this Six Nations. You've got to see England getting a result of both against both Italy and Wales. And I think the pendulum swings whichever way wins a week on Saturday's time between Ireland and France, because it's a game of huge magnitudes for all teams involved in the Six Nations. You think Italy are out of it now, and so are Wales probably. Scotland are just about out of it. England are there or thereabouts, and Ireland are commanding the lead in front, as probably expected, joined with France just not too far behind. As we move on from rugby, it's become probably trademark for me to end on a horse racing topic. Obviously, we had the sad news last week of Michael O'Sullivan's passing. Uh, we've not really got much of a lighter note this week. James Bowen, top Welsh jockey, had a winner on Sunday evening or Sunday afternoon, you could say. A nice winner, but he was deemed to have gone over the whip allowance, giving himself a 7-day ban. And with the way the bans work in England, they're not enforced until some distance afterwards. So Cheltenham Festival for many national hunt jockeys is the Olympics of their sport. It's the pinnacle of the sport. That's what they wait for throughout the years, and we're just under 2 weeks away from the start of that now. And James Bowen has unfortunately picked up a 7-day ban throughout that week, and he will miss Cheltenham 2025, which has got to be heartbreaking for him. Many people are calling for him to take an appeal to see what can happen through the appeals process. Maybe see if he can get a hearing, which would then delay the ban until after the festival. There are many options for him, but the most likely option is that he does miss the festival this year, which would be gutting. He would have some good rides and the potential to ride a winner. And that has been episode 4 of the Bathurst Elwell Sports Show, and we hope you join us next week, where I will probably do a Cheltenham preview, as we will be less than a week away from the event. I'll try to give you some best bets, and we'll talk about the rest of the sports news throughout the week. Bye.
See ya.